Is wireless tech bad for your health? If you asked that question before, you were probably called crazy. But if you're like the millions of people who've watched my other videos on this topic, you know darn well that you should be asking those questions. Despite a mountain of scientific evidence, I still hear things like, "You're crazy if you think Wi-Fi is harmful. 5G is perfectly safe. Go put your tinfoil hat on." So the question is, are your Wi-Fi and smartphone slowly killing you or not? In this video, I'll show you some of the latest info and also how to respond to the snarky comments with a little dose of good old-fashioned common sense. Welcome back to ScottiesTech.Info. I'm Scotty, here again with my co-host Cletus the Tribble. Okay, so Cletus's advice is to just ignore everybody and just get down with your bad self, do what you want. That's okay advice, but I think we can do a little bit better. The first talking point we hear is that wireless radiation is non-ionizing radiation, and therefore it doesn't hurt you. That means that instead of ripping electrons off the atoms of your body and causing things like cancer, wireless tech is said to emit harmless waves. But not so fast. UV light from the sun is both ionizing and non-ionizing. The bad UV is usually absorbed by the atmosphere, which leaves regular non-ionizing UV light when you're at the beach. But we know that too much sun equals sunburn, and that can mean skin cancer. Even infrared radiation, aka heat, which is also non-ionizing radiation, is not perfectly safe in large doses. That's why nobody wants to get lost in the desert. So the "but it's non-ionizing" argument simply shows that the person didn't really pay enough attention in their high school physics class. But let's go deeper than that even. Take a look at this, which reveals that hundreds of studies show that EMFs do indeed have effects on almost all biological processes. What's more, EMFs cause a stress response in our cells, which means small exposure to even low-intensity EMFs over longer periods of time might not have any immediate effects that you can feel, but EMF exposure over time may lead to serious diseases later in life. The idea that our bodies are only harmed by ionizing radiation is basically just outdated dogma, not science. New discoveries and research have shown again and again that non-ionizing does not automatically mean totally safe. The second most common talking point you hear is that, "but the power levels are so low, it's gotta be safe." This one is fun. Many studies show that very low power levels still seem to have effects on our bodies, but it's not that simple. This type of EMF not only damages your cells, but it also makes your body more susceptible to other toxins. In other words, the toxic effects of man-made pollution that you, me, and everyone else is exposed to on a daily basis is made a lot worse by 2.4 gigahertz low-power EMF. What's more, this study showed that higher toxicity levels stayed high for another 72 hours after exposure. This is just the tip of a very large iceberg. Again, there are now countless studies highlighting the dangers of even low-power EMF. So if someone tells you that low-power Wi-Fi signals are perfectly safe, you should have no problem calling it out as BS. The third most common complaint you hear is that surely our government wouldn't mess up that badly. I mean, the FCC assures us that these things are safe, right? Not quite. So what does the FCC actually say? This article is from the FCC itself, and it's about phone SAR ratings. SAR is specific absorption rate, and it's supposed to assure us that the RF or radio frequency emissions from smartphones are at safe levels. SAR is a peak value from many EMF measurements of a gizmo, so it's the worst case scenario when it comes to how your body absorbs radio waves from a given device. Now, note that it says FCC approval does not indicate the amount of RF exposure during normal use of the device, and consequently cell phones cannot be reliably compared for their overall exposure characteristics on the basis of a single SAR value. Right, so what the heck does that mean? What it means is that a high SAR value from phone A might be due to holding it a certain way for a certain frequency that the average user will never experience. But during normal use, your body might absorb very little energy from phone A. Phone B, meanwhile, might have a lower peak SAR value, but it emits a lot more EMF during normal use, so the user will absorb far more of this energy in the long term. So SAR ratings are used by many people as proof that the government is protecting us, but even the FCC itself admits that SAR ratings are no such thing. Okay, so where are the safety ratings? There aren't any. So non-ionizing radiation can be dangerous. Even low-power EMFs can be dangerous, and the FCC admits that its very own safety ratings are not really worth a thing. Which is probably why so many people, like you and me, are so concerned about all these things. See how easy that was? The 3 most common talking points smashed. Also, keep in mind that while you might think that you're alone in this battle, there are actually very many very smart people out there interested in seeing better research done on the safety of wireless technology. For example, back in 2017, over 390 doctors and scientists appealed to the European Union to delay the 5G rollout, but the EU didn't even listen. This is one example of many. The reality is that never before have we been so saturated in all these wireless signals. Wi-Fi, for example, was only in most homes beginning around maybe 2008. The iPhone was released in 2007, so it was another several years before the cheap smartphone craze caught on. What this means is that no one really knows what effects this wireless soup will have because we've only been swimming in it for about 10 years. The so-called wireless generation hasn't even fully matured yet. Meanwhile, doctors in many countries are reporting explosions in many diseases such as cancer, diabetes, and other serious ailments that used to only affect the elderly. Do we really know why that is? Wouldn't it be a good idea to find out? Isn't it a good idea to take basic precautions, go wired, and do some further studies without conflicts of interest, without industry-funded studies, without political bias, and with an open mind? I think so. And so does Cletus. What I'd like to know is, do you have a wireless war story to share? Let me know in the comments below. For more techie tips, see ScottiesTech.Info. Thanks for watching. See you next time.